Imagine a mind so profound that it anticipated the mental health challenges we face today. Overwhelming anxiety, identity crises, and the deep sense of inner fragmentation, long before modern psychology even existed. Carl Jung, a pioneer of the unconscious mind, delved into the hidden layers of human behavior and uncovered timeless truths about how we think, feel, and struggle. His groundbreaking ideas reveal that much of our suffering stems from parts of ourselves we refuse to see, and that healing begins by embracing these shadows within. In this video, we will journey through Jung's revolutionary theories, exploring how his insights from a century ago still hold the key to understanding and overcoming the complex mental health issues of our time. Prepare to discover a new way of seeing yourself and the world, one that could transform the way you approach your own mind and emotional well-being forever. Over 100 years ago, Carl Jung saw something in the human psyche that still echoes through today's world, an invisible crisis that modern society would eventually have to face. Unlike many thinkers of his time who focused on external conditions or surface-level behavior, Jung looked inward. He believed that most human suffering came not from the outside world, but from deep inner conflicts, unresolved tensions, and a lack of understanding of the self. In this way, Jung wasn't just a psychologist. He was a visionary. His theories were not just explanations of mental health, they were warnings. Warnings that if humanity continued to avoid self-awareness and spiritual growth, we would see a rise in emotional instability, anxiety, depression, and an overall sense of being lost. And here we are in the 21st century, witnessing exactly what he predicted. Mental health issues are everywhere today. Despite all our advancements in science, technology, and comfort, we are more anxious, more depressed, and more disconnected than ever. Carl Jung saw this coming. He believed that modern people would be spiritually starving, overwhelmed by the pressures of conformity, materialism, and technological distraction. In fact, Jung once said, "The greatest tragedy of the family is the unlived lives of the parents." What he meant was that people often fail to live authentically. They bury their true selves beneath roles, duties, and appearances. That burial of the real self, Jung believed, was the root of psychological suffering. Jung's core message was this: if you don't face what's happening inside you, it will control you from the shadows. He introduced powerful concepts like the shadow, the persona, individuation, and the collective unconscious, each one a key to understanding why people suffer the way they do today. Take the shadow, for instance. It represents the parts of ourselves we reject or hide from: anger, jealousy, vulnerability. Jung warned that the more we ignore these parts, the more power they gain over us. In a world where social media filters our lives and rewards perfection, we're more disconnected from our shadows than ever. And as Jung predicted, that disconnection comes at a cost. He also spoke of the persona, the social mask we wear to be accepted. While a healthy persona helps us navigate society, Jung warned that becoming too identified with the mask leads to an identity crisis. Isn't that exactly what we see today? People unsure of who they are without their job title, their relationship status, or their online image. Anxiety often comes from trying to live up to a version of yourself that isn't real. Jung's work helps us see that clearly. Another of Jung's timeless ideas is individuation, the process of becoming your true self. He believed that without this journey, a person would feel empty, lost, or depressed. Mental health struggles, in Jung's view, were not simply disorders, but signals from the unconscious, asking us to grow, evolve, and become whole. Modern psychiatry often sees symptoms to be fixed, but Jung saw them as messages to be understood. This shift in perspective is powerful. It means your anxiety isn't just a problem, It could be a message from a deeper part of you that has been ignored. But Jung didn't just study individuals, he also looked at society as a whole. He warned that when large groups of people deny their inner world, chaos follows. He saw this in the rise of fascism and war during his lifetime. Today, we see it in the breakdown of communities, the rise of tribalism, and the mental health epidemic. His idea of the collective unconscious, a shared psychological foundation that all humans are born with, suggested that the health of individuals is connected to the health of humanity as a whole. When we ignore this shared inner life, we lose empathy, meaning, and connection. In the end, Jung's teachings remind us that healing doesn't come from avoiding pain, but from understanding it. True mental health, he believed, comes from inner integration, acknowledging all parts of ourselves and giving them a voice. In today's world, his voice speaks louder than ever, because he didn't just describe mental health issues, he saw them coming, and he gave us the tools to face them, if only we're brave enough to look within. Carl Jung believed that one of the deepest problems of modern humanity is the fragmentation of the self. He saw that most people live their lives split between what they show to the world and what they truly feel inside. This inner divide creates confusion, anxiety, and eventually mental illness. Jung didn't see the human mind as a simple machine with parts to be fixed. He saw it as a rich, living system filled with different aspects, some known, some hidden, and when those aspects are out of balance or ignored, we suffer. According to Jung, every person has a conscious mind, the part we identify with, make decisions through, and show to others. But beneath that lies the unconscious, a powerful part of the psyche that stores all the things we've repressed, forgotten, or never fully understood. When we deny these unconscious parts, we create an inner crisis. Imagine trying to build a house and ignoring half the materials. The structure won't be strong. That's what Jung saw happening in people's minds. This inner division between who we are and who we think we are is at the heart of so many modern mental health problems. People feel anxious without knowing why. They feel like something is missing, even when they have everything they thought they wanted. Jung believed this is because people are disconnected from their full selves. They live only from the surface, ignoring the deeper layers of their being. One of the causes of this fragmentation is social conditioning. From a young age, we are taught to behave in certain ways, follow certain paths, and meet certain expectations. We start to mold ourselves into what others want us to be. Over time, we forget who we were before the world told us who we should be. Jung called this loss psychic disintegration, a weakening of the inner unity that holds us together. Instead of being whole, people become collections of roles, habits, and reactions. This loss of inner cohesion leads to confusion, depression, and a constant feeling of being lost. In today's world, this crisis is only growing. The pressure to succeed, to perform, to fit in, and to appear perfect is stronger than ever. Social media encourages us to compare ourselves constantly. Many people feel like they are living two lives, one online, where everything looks fine, and one in their mind, where they feel overwhelmed, insecure, or empty. Jung would see this as a clear sign of fragmentation. He believed that healing could only come through integration, bringing all the parts of the self back together. This includes not only our strengths and positive qualities, but also our fears, wounds, and dark thoughts. Integration doesn't mean becoming perfect. It means becoming whole. Jung said, "I'd rather be whole than good." That means accepting all sides of ourselves, even the ones we don't like or understand. Jung also noticed that when people ignore this inner work for too long, the unconscious starts to rebel. It can show up through anxiety, nightmares, obsessive thoughts, or depression. These are not just symptoms to be silenced. but signals from the psyche calling us to pay attention. The deeper message is, something inside you is not being seen or heard. Therapy, in Jung's view, was not just about solving problems, but about discovering who you really are. He believed that within each person is a true self, buried beneath layers of conditioning and fear. This self is not created by success, fame, or approval. It's discovered through self-reflection, honesty, and inner work. In modern times, we often look outside ourselves for answers, to medication, to distractions, to quick solutions. Jung believed the real work is inward. The crisis of the fragmented self cannot be healed by surface-level fixes. It requires us to face our fears, question our identities, and explore the forgotten corners of our minds. In this way, Jung's message is both challenging and hopeful. He tells us that yes, we are divided, but we can become whole. Yes, the path is difficult, but it leads to real freedom. And yes, the world may confuse us, but within us lies a map waiting to be read. The inner crisis we face today is not a new problem. It's one Jung saw long ago, and his wisdom still offers a light for those willing to look within. Carl Jung introduced one of the most powerful and unsettling ideas in modern psychology, the shadow. He believed that every person carries within them a hidden side, a collection of traits, emotions, and desires they deny, reject, or are ashamed of. This shadow isn't evil by nature. It's simply made up of the parts of ourselves we try not to see. And according to Jung, the more we repress these parts, the more they control us from behind the scenes. From early childhood, we're taught what's acceptable and what's not. We're praised for being polite, kind, obedient, but scolded for being angry, selfish, or too emotional. As a result, we push those unacceptable parts into our unconscious. But they don't disappear. They form the shadow, and they wait. Jung didn't believe mental health meant being happy all the time. He believed it meant becoming whole. To become whole, we must face the shadow. This is difficult because the shadow carries everything we've been taught to avoid. Jealousy, fear, rage, lust, even weakness. These emotions don't go away just because we ignore them. Instead, they leak out in harmful ways, through anxiety, depression, projection, and even destructive behavior. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That means the things we refuse to face in ourselves don't just vanish, they shape our choices, our relationships, and our emotions without us realizing it. For example, someone who denies their own anger might constantly attract aggressive people into their life, or they may explode unexpectedly at small triggers. That's the shadow acting out, trying to be seen. In today's world, the shadow is stronger than ever, because we're more disconnected from our inner selves than ever. Social media, advertising, and culture all push us to present only our best selves. We filter our faces, polish our words, and measure our value by how liked we are. But Jung warned that this kind of perfectionism is dangerous. The more we try to seem perfect, the more we hide our flaws, and the more power we give our shadow. Repressing the shadow doesn't just hurt us individually, it damages society as a whole. When people don't deal with their inner darkness, they tend to project it onto others. They blame strangers, groups, or entire communities for the things they hate in themselves. This projection is one of the main causes of prejudice, hatred, and even violence. Jung saw this clearly in the rise of fascism during the 20th century. He believed that mass movements fueled by anger and fear often come from collective shadow projections. So what can we do? Jung encouraged shadow work, a deep, honest exploration of the parts of ourselves we fear or dislike. This isn't easy. It requires courage, patience, and self-compassion, but it's also incredibly freeing. When we face our shadow, we stop being ruled by it. We become more grounded, more understanding of others, and more at peace with ourselves. Shadow work doesn't mean acting on every dark thought or desire. It means recognizing them, understanding where they come from, and learning to respond with awareness instead of shame. For example, if you feel intense jealousy, instead of pretending it doesn't exist, ask yourself why it's there. What fear or insecurity is it pointing to? That kind of reflection can transform negative emotions into powerful insights. Jung also believed that the shadow isn't just a collection of bad traits. It can also hold hidden gifts like creativity, assertiveness, passion, and strength that we've buried because they were discouraged in childhood. By facing the shadow, we can reclaim those gifts and live more fully. In modern mental health, we often treat symptoms, panic, sadness, overthinking, without asking what deeper truths lie beneath them. Jung's concept of the shadow reminds us that sometimes what we call a disorder is actually a signal, a message from the parts of us we've tried to forget. Ultimately, Jung taught that no one becomes enlightened by imagining light, but by making the darkness conscious. The journey inward is uncomfortable, but necessary. When we dare to explore our shadow, we begin to integrate all that we are, not just the parts that look good on the outside, and that, according to Jung, is the true path to healing. Carl Jung believed that much of modern mental suffering, especially anxiety, comes from a deep, often hidden loss of meaning. Unlike physical pain, psychological pain doesn't always have a clear source. People may feel restless, overwhelmed, or hollow inside, even when nothing obvious is wrong. Jung saw this not as a weakness or a flaw, but as a sign that the soul is starving. He believed that when life feels empty, it's because we've lost touch with something vital, our inner purpose, our connection to the deeper layers of existence. Jung called this problem the crisis of meaning. In earlier times, people had religion, myth, and tradition to guide them. These systems gave life structure and helped people understand their place in the world. They offered answers to life's biggest questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What happens after death? But in the modern world, many of these old structures have collapsed or lost their power. Science explains how things work, but not why we suffer. Technology gives us comfort, but not connection. As a result, people are left searching, often in silence, for something to believe in, something to give their life depth. This emptiness often shows up as anxiety. Jung believed anxiety is not just a disorder, it's a signal. It tells us that something inside is out of alignment. A person may appear successful, busy, or productive, but still feel that life has no real value. That's because they're living without meaning. They're moving through life without direction, driven by outside pressures instead of inner purpose. Jung warned that a purely materialistic worldview would lead to a spiritual crisis, and that's exactly what we see today. People chase money, status, or followers, thinking it will bring happiness, but often end up feeling more anxious than ever. That's because the soul doesn't care about external success. It longs for meaning, for authenticity, for connection with something greater. Without that, we become emotionally lost. Jung didn't believe in forcing people into old belief systems, but he did think that each person must find their own inner truth. He believed that inside every person is an unconscious drive toward meaning, what he called the process of individuation. This process pushes us to grow, to ask deep questions, and to become whole. When we ignore this inner calling, anxiety and depression often follow, not because we're broken, but because we're off course. In Jung's view, many modern people suffer not from mental illness, in the clinical sense, but from meaninglessness. He saw this in his patients, people who were not insane, but deeply unhappy. They weren't sure who they were or why they were alive. They had no spiritual foundation, no guiding myth, no personal journey. Jung believed that when a person lacks meaning, they lose their ability to endure suffering. Life becomes unbearable, not because it's hard, but because it feels pointless. He also believed that meaning can't be given by someone else. It must be discovered within. That discovery often begins with a breakdown. When the old ways of living no longer work, when a person starts to feel anxious or depressed, that's when the deeper work begins. Jung saw this pain not as a failure, but as an invitation, a call to look inward, to explore the unconscious, and to reconnect with something sacred and personal. In today's world, we often try to fix anxiety with distractions. We scroll, consume, or medicate, hoping the feeling will go away. But Jung would ask us to pause and listen. What is the anxiety trying to say? What part of us has been ignored or denied? What deeper truth have we lost touch with? Jung's answer to modern anxiety was not a quick fix. It was a journey into the unknown parts of ourselves, into our dreams, fears, and longings. He believed that by facing the unconscious and seeking our true path, we could transform anxiety into growth. That's not an easy process, but it's a necessary one. Today, Jung's insights are more relevant than ever. We live in a world full of stimulation, but starved of meaning. And unless we face that, anxiety will only grow. But if we dare to explore the deeper dimensions of life, if we listen to the whispers of the soul, we may find that anxiety is not the enemy. It's the beginning of a more meaningful life. Carl Jung introduced the concept of the persona to explain how people create social masks to fit into society. The word persona comes from Latin, meaning mask, like the ones worn in ancient theater. According to Jung, the persona is not our true self. It is a carefully shaped image we present to the world. It helps us function in society, build relationships, and fulfill roles like being a student, parent, friend, or worker. But when we become too attached to this mask, we risk losing touch with who we really are. And this, Jung believed, is a major cause of mental distress in the modern world. Everyone has a persona. It's how we behave at work, how we speak to strangers, how we present ourselves online. It's a kind of performance, but it's necessary. Without it, social life would be chaotic. We all need to adapt and fit into different situations. Jung didn't say the persona is bad, only that problems arise when we start to believe we are the mask. In childhood, our personas begin to form based on what gets rewarded or punished. If we learn that being quiet and agreeable gets approval, we hide our assertiveness. If we're told that anger is ugly or wrong, we learn to smile through our frustration. Slowly, we start shaping ourselves into someone acceptable, but in the process, parts of our true identity are pushed aside. As we grow older, many of us become trapped in our personas. We may become the perfect student, the strong one, the funny one, or the successful professional. These roles can feel safe, but they also limit us. If we only live through the persona, we ignore the deeper, more complex parts of our psyche. This creates an inner split. One part of us is always performing, while another part feels unseen, unexpressed, or even unknown. This inner conflict can lead to exhaustion, depression, or identity confusion. A person may feel empty or lost, even if they appear successful on the outside. That's because they're living for others, not for themselves. Jung believed that the overuse of the persona leads to alienation from the self. And this alienation is a key cause of modern mental health struggles. In today's world, the persona has become more powerful than ever. Social media encourages us to build a personal brand, a polished version of ourselves to gain likes, followers, or approval. We carefully select photos, words, and even moods to present the best version of our lives. But this digital persona is often far removed from our reality. Behind the perfect image may be loneliness, stress, or insecurity. Jung would say that the more we invest in this false self, the more our true self suffers in silence. One of Jung's most important warnings was that when the persona becomes too strong, it creates a psychological imbalance. We start to fear what lies behind the mask, our vulnerabilities, our unfiltered emotions, our deeper desires. We may avoid intimacy, honesty, or self-reflection because we're afraid of breaking the image we've worked so hard to build. Over time, this fear becomes a cage. We stop growing. We lose authenticity. Jung believed that true healing begins when we start peeling back the mask, not by destroying the persona, but by loosening its grip. This means taking the time to ask hard questions. Who am I when no one's watching? What do I truly feel beyond what I'm supposed to feel? What dreams or thoughts have I buried to fit in? The journey away from the persona and toward the true self is uncomfortable. It involves confronting the shadow, embracing vulnerability, and stepping outside our social comfort zones. But it's also deeply liberating. Jung believed that we only begin to live fully when we stop being actors in our own lives and start becoming authors. In therapy, Jungian analysts often explore the conflict between the persona and the true self. They help people recognize when their public identity no longer fits who they are becoming. This moment, though painful, is also a doorway. It allows the individual to step into a more honest, more integrated version of themselves. In the end, Jung didn't ask people to stop wearing masks. He asked them to stop confusing the mask for the face beneath. The persona can help us survive in the world, but it should never replace the self. And in a society where image often matters more than truth, Jung's message is more relevant than ever. You are not your role, your title, or your profile. You are far more if only you're willing to look within. At the heart of Carl Jung's psychology is a deeply transformative idea called individuation. This isn't just another word for self-improvement or personal growth. Individuation, as Jung defined it, is the lifelong process of becoming who you truly are, beyond your social roles, your conditioning, and even your own self-image. It's the integration of all the parts of your psyche into a unified whole. Jung believed that this inner journey is not only essential for mental health, but also for finding real purpose and peace in life. In Jung's view, every human being is born with a unique potential, a deep inner blueprint. But from the moment we enter the world, we start to forget it. Society, family, and culture shape us into what they want us to be. We learn what's acceptable, what's praised, and what's punished. We build a persona, repress our shadow, and often live a life that feels more like a performance than a personal truth. Individuation is the process of undoing that forgetting. It's about coming home to the self. This process doesn't mean becoming isolated or selfish, it means becoming authentic. Instead of copying others or chasing what others value, we begin to ask, what do I truly think? What do I deeply feel? What do I want my life to mean? Jung believed that each person has an inner compass, a guiding force that moves them toward wholeness. He called this force the self, with a capital S, not the ego, which is just our conscious identity, but the self, our total being, including both conscious and unconscious parts. The path of individuation often begins with a crisis. Life becomes painful, dull, or chaotic. The roles we've been playing no longer satisfy us. We may feel lost, empty, or anxious. Jung saw this not as a failure, but as a signal that the ego can no longer carry the weight of the soul's true potential. The unconscious begins to stir, demanding to be seen. This is the call to begin the journey. Throughout the individuation process, a person must confront their shadow, the repressed parts of themselves, and integrate them. They must question their persona, the false masks they wear, and let go of those that no longer serve them. They must explore their dreams, emotions, and even their fears. Jung saw dreams as messages from the unconscious, clues guiding us toward inner truth. Individuation is not about achieving perfection. In fact, it requires us to accept imperfection, contradiction, and complexity. It's about embracing all aspects of ourselves, the light and the dark, the rational and the emotional, the strong and the vulnerable. As Jung said, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. This journey is deeply personal. No two paths are the same. For one person, individuation may involve creating art or exploring spirituality. For another, it may mean setting boundaries, healing from trauma, or finding the courage to live differently than expected. What matters is that the person is moving closer to their inner truth, not just following a map drawn by others. Modern mental health struggles often stem from a lack of this deep inner connection. We're told to be productive, successful, popular, but we're rarely encouraged to be whole. We suppress discomfort with distractions, treat symptoms without exploring causes, and measure life by how things look instead of how they feel. Jung's message was a radical shift. Stop chasing outward validation and begin listening inward. Individuation is not a one-time achievement. It's a lifelong unfolding. Jung believed that true psychological health doesn't come from fitting in perfectly, but from living authentically. It's about aligning your outer life with your inner truth, and that alignment brings not only healing, but a sense of meaning that no external reward can replace. In today's fast-paced, image-driven world, individuation is more important than ever. It calls us to slow down, to look within, and to honor the complexity of our own journey. Jung didn't offer easy answers. He offered a path. And though that path can be challenging, it's also deeply rewarding, because in becoming whole, we don't just heal ourselves. We become a light for others to do the same. Carl Jung believed that dreams are not random or meaningless. They are the voice of the unconscious mind, speaking to us in symbols, stories, and emotions. Unlike Freud, who saw dreams primarily as expressions of repressed desires, Jung saw them as messages from the deeper self, guiding us toward healing, insight, and wholeness. To him, dreams were a vital part of the individuation process, the journey of becoming your true self. In Jung's view, the unconscious is not just a storage room of forgotten memories or dark impulses. It is a living, intelligent force within us, containing wisdom, creativity, and a natural urge to grow. But this unconscious part of us doesn't speak in words or logic. It speaks in images through dreams. Jung often said that dreams are like letters from the soul. If we learn how to read them, they can reveal powerful truths about who we are and what we need. Jung believed that dreams are deeply personal. They don't come with fixed meanings. Instead, they must be explored based on the dreamer's own feelings, history, and inner conflicts. A snake in one person's dream might represent fear, while in another's it could symbolize transformation or healing. What matters is not what the symbol means in a textbook, but what it means to the dreamer. But dreams also contain universal symbols, which Jung called archetypes. These include images like the hero, the wise old man, the mother, the child, the shadow, and many others. Jung believed that these archetypes live in what he called the collective unconscious, a shared psychic structure that all humans inherit. That's why people across different cultures and times often dream of similar themes or figures. Archetypes are part of our shared human story. When someone is struggling with anxiety, depression, or identity confusion, Jung would often look to their dreams for insight. He believed that dreams could show what the conscious mind refuses to see. For example, A person who appears confident and successful might dream of being lost or naked in public. That dream may reveal feelings of vulnerability that they're hiding even from themselves. Rather than being seen as irrational, such a dream is deeply honest, an attempt by the unconscious to bring truth to the surface. Jung also warned that ignoring dreams is like ignoring your own inner wisdom. He saw the modern world as overly focused on logic, reason, and external achievement, while neglecting the inner life. As a result, people become emotionally unbalanced, disconnected from themselves, and plagued by anxiety they don't understand. Dreams, he believed, offer a natural way to restore that balance by reconnecting us to the hidden parts of ourselves. Working with dreams doesn't mean decoding them like a puzzle. It means listening, noticing what emotions they stir up, what questions they raise, what symbols they repeat. Jung often asked his patients to draw their dreams, write them down, or talk about them in therapy. He believed that even a single powerful dream could change the course of a person's inner journey. He also saw dreams as a way the unconscious compensates for the conscious mind. If someone is too focused on work and control, they may dream of chaos or nature, reminding them to soften, to rest, to let go. If someone is ignoring their creative side, they might dream of music, dance, or wild animals. The unconscious always seeks balance, and dreams are its way of nudging us toward it. In many cultures throughout history, dreams were considered sacred, messages from gods, ancestors, or spirits. Jung respected this ancient wisdom and brought it into modern psychology. He believed that restoring our relationship with dreams is one of the most important things we can do for our mental and emotional health. Today, in our hyper-rational, fast-paced world, we often dismiss dreams as nonsense. But Jung would say we do this at our own risk. When we stop listening to the unconscious, we become strangers to ourselves. And that disconnection is at the root of much of our modern suffering. To heal, we must remember how to listen, to pause, to reflect, to let our dreams speak. Because inside each dream is not just a story, but a mirror, a message, a map. And if we're willing to follow it, we may just find our way back to ourselves. Carl Jung's theory of archetypes is one of his most fascinating and influential contributions to psychology. Archetypes, according to Jung, are universal patterns or symbols that exist deep within the human psyche. They are not inherited memories or specific ideas, but rather basic blueprints of human experience, structures that shape how we think, feel, dream, and behave, often without us even realizing it. Jung discovered that people from vastly different cultures and time periods often shared similar symbols, myths, and characters in their stories, religions, and dreams. These repeating figures, the hero, the shadow, the wise old man, the great mother, the trickster, appear again and again across history and across the world. He concluded that these figures are part of the collective unconscious, a deeper layer of the mind that all humans share. Unlike the personal unconscious, which contains forgotten memories and experiences unique to each individual, the collective unconscious holds these ancient shared templates. Archetypes are not just abstract ideas. They show up in our lives in very real ways. We meet them in books and films. We feel them in relationships. We see them in our own inner world, in our fears, desires, and choices. For example, when someone goes on a personal quest to find themselves or to overcome a major obstacle, they are living out the hero archetype. When a person struggles with their darker impulses or self-destructive behaviors, they are facing the shadow. When they seek comfort and unconditional love, they are reaching for the great mother. But these archetypes aren't characters in the usual sense. They are psychological forces. They shape how we experience life and how we understand ourselves. They can appear in dreams, fantasies, and creative work. Often they emerge during key moments in our lives, times of crisis, transformation, or deep reflection. Take the archetype of the shadow. Jung believed that everyone carries a shadow, a dark, hidden part of themselves that contains what they deny, repress, or reject. This can include anger, jealousy, weakness, selfishness, or even talents and desires we were told were wrong. The shadow is not evil. It's simply the part of us we don't want to face. And yet, if we ignore it, it controls us from the background. Jung believed that real growth requires confronting and integrating the shadow. Another powerful archetype is the anima in men and animus in women, which represent the inner feminine and masculine aspects of our psyche. These archetypes help us understand the opposite energies within ourselves: sensitivity and strength, intuition and logic, emotion and action. When these are out of balance, it can lead to confusion in relationships or inner conflict. But when integrated, they bring harmony and wholeness. Jung also spoke of the self as the most central archetype, the blueprint of our full potential. It's not the same as the ego, our conscious identity, but something deeper. The self represents the complete union of our conscious and unconscious mind. It's the guiding force behind the individuation process, the inner drive to become whole. In dreams, the self may appear as a wise figure, a mandala, or even a child. It's a symbol of our deepest truth. Understanding archetypes can help us see our own lives with more clarity. We begin to notice the roles we unconsciously play. Maybe we're stuck in the victim or the martyr, or always chasing the hero's success. We begin to see how others project archetypes onto us, like expecting us to be the caregiver, the rebel, or the savior. These patterns can trap us or empower us depending on whether we're aware of them. Modern media is filled with archetypal storytelling. Movies like The Matrix, Star Wars, or Harry Potter resonate deeply with people because they follow ancient archetypal paths. The mentor, the villain, the journey, the transformation, all of these touch something universal inside us. Jung believed that recognizing these patterns helps us live more consciously. Instead of being pulled around by unconscious forces, we begin to participate in our own evolution. Archetypes don't control us, they invite us. They ask us to look within and discover which forces are shaping our decisions, our emotions, and our relationships. In today's world, where identity can feel fragmented and people often feel lost, archetypes offer a map. Not a rigid path, but a symbolic guide, a way to understand the inner architecture of the psyche. By exploring them, we begin to see that our struggles, fears, and dreams are not just personal, they're also deeply human. And through that understanding, we move one step closer to healing, connection, and inner wholeness. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow is one of the most profound and challenging ideas in psychology. The shadow represents the parts of ourselves that we deny, reject, or hide, those aspects we consider undesirable, shameful, or unacceptable. Yet, paradoxically, the shadow is not evil or bad. It is simply the unconscious side of our personality, containing everything we refuse to acknowledge consciously. From childhood, we learn to behave in ways that gain approval and avoid punishment. We suppress impulses, emotions, or traits that don't fit with what our family, culture, or society values. Over time, these rejected parts don't disappear. They get pushed into the unconscious, forming the shadow. This can include anger, envy, greed, selfishness, or fears, but also positive qualities like creativity, spontaneity, or strength that we were discouraged from expressing. The shadow lives in the dark corners of our psyche, yet it influences us in powerful ways. When ignored, it can cause inner tension, confusion, or destructive behaviors. We might find ourselves acting out in anger unexpectedly, or repeating harmful patterns we don't understand. Jung believed that much of modern mental distress, anxiety, depression, and addiction stems from the shadow's power over us when it remains unconscious. One of the most difficult but transformative steps in Jungian psychology is shadow work, the process of recognizing, accepting, and integrating these hidden parts of ourselves. This means facing the uncomfortable truths about who we are, including the impulses and traits we wish we didn't have. It's a courageous act of self-honesty. Jung warned that failing to acknowledge the shadow doesn't make it go away. Instead, it projects outward. We begin to see in others the faults we refuse to see in ourselves. This projection creates conflict, prejudice, and misunderstanding. For example, if someone denies their own anger, they might accuse others of being aggressive or hostile, not realizing they are projecting their shadow onto the outside world. Shadow projection is a source of much personal and social conflict. The process of embracing the shadow is not about becoming bad or giving in to destructive impulses. Rather, it's about reclaiming the energy and authenticity hidden beneath repression. When we integrate the shadow, we gain access to hidden talents, creativity, and emotional depth. We become more whole and balanced, able to face life's challenges with greater honesty and resilience. Jung described the shadow as a partner in our psychic life, not an enemy. To live fully, we must learn to dance with the shadow, to understand its messages and transform its energy. This integration leads to greater self-awareness and psychological freedom. Instead of being driven unconsciously by hidden fears or desires, we become the conscious authors of our lives. Shadow work often begins with small steps, noticing moments of judgment toward others, paying attention to strong emotional reactions, or reflecting on recurring patterns. Therapy, journaling, and creative expression can support this exploration. Dreams are also rich sources of shadow material, as they reveal symbols and scenarios that bring unconscious content to light. In a broader sense, Jung believed that society itself has a shadow. The collective shadow includes all the dark, denied parts of culture, such as racism, violence, and greed. When these remain unacknowledged, they erupt in destructive ways. Jung's call was not only personal, but social. Healing begins when we confront the shadow within and around us. In today's world, where many people experience anxiety, alienation, or inner emptiness, the shadow concept is especially relevant. It challenges the popular idea of always being positive or perfect. Instead, Jung invites us to embrace our full humanity, flaws and all. This radical acceptance is the foundation for true mental health. Ultimately, the shadow is a doorway. When we face it without fear, we discover a deeper strength and authenticity. We stop running from ourselves and start living with integrity. This process, though difficult, is essential for healing and becoming whole. Jung's insight was simple but revolutionary. To be truly free, we must make peace with the parts of ourselves we have long feared to see. One of Carl Jung's most intriguing and mysterious concepts is synchronicity, a term he coined to describe meaningful coincidences that seem to defy ordinary explanation. Unlike cause and effect relationships studied by science, synchronicity refers to events that are connected not by causality, but by meaning. These are moments when an external event perfectly aligns with an inner experience, creating a powerful sense of significance or insight. Imagine thinking deeply about a friend you haven't spoken to in years, and suddenly they call you out of the blue. Or dreaming about a symbol, a bird, a key, or a strange figure, and then encountering that exact symbol later, the same day. These experiences can feel uncanny, as if the universe is communicating with you or guiding you on your path. Jung believed synchronicity reveals a deeper order to reality, one that connects our inner psychological world with the outer physical world. He proposed that psyche, the mind, and physis, nature, are not separate but interconnected through what he called an acausal connecting principle. This means that sometimes events happen in meaningful ways that can't be explained by cause and effect, but resonate deeply with our personal or collective experience. Synchronicity challenges the modern scientific worldview, which tends to see the universe as purely mechanical and random. Jung's idea suggests that beneath the surface of chaos, there is a meaningful pattern, one that connects our thoughts, feelings, and experiences with the world around us in mysterious ways. This concept is closely related to Jung's ideas about the unconscious and archetypes. He found that many synchronistic events involve archetypal symbols or themes appearing at exactly the right moment. For example, a person going through a difficult transformation might experience repeated encounters with symbols of death and rebirth, such as snakes shedding their skin or a phoenix rising from ashes. These coincidences are not just chance. They speak to the inner process unfolding within that person. Jung worked closely with physicist Wolfgang Pauli to explore synchronicity and its implications for understanding the universe. Their discussions bridged psychology and quantum physics, pointing to a reality where mind and matter are intertwined in ways still not fully understood. In practical terms, recognizing synchronicity can be a powerful tool for self-awareness and decision-making. When unusual coincidences occur that feel meaningful, they often point to something important in our life, an opportunity, a warning, or a call to pay attention. Jung encouraged people to be open to these moments and to reflect on their significance rather than dismissing them as mere chance. For many, synchronicity feels like a confirmation that life has deeper meaning and order, especially during times of uncertainty or crisis. It can provide comfort and guidance, reminding us that we are connected to something larger than ourselves. Critics sometimes dismiss synchronicity as superstition or coincidence, but Jung's approach was always grounded in careful observation and clinical experience. He saw synchronicity as an empirical phenomenon, a real psychological event with profound implications for how we understand the mind and reality. In the modern world, where many feel disconnected and overwhelmed, synchronicity offers a reminder that meaning is everywhere, waiting to be discovered. It invites us to slow down, listen to our intuition, and trust that life is unfolding in a purposeful way, even when we don't yet see the full picture. Ultimately, synchronicity reflects Jung's deep belief in the mystery and magic of human experience. It suggests that behind the surface of everyday life lies a vast interconnected web of meaning, a dance between the inner and outer worlds that calls us to pay attention, to wonder, and to grow. Carl Jung's concept of individuation is the heart of his psychological philosophy, a lifelong process of becoming your true, whole self. Individuation is not just about personal growth or self-improvement. It's a deep transformation that involves integrating all parts of your psyche, both conscious and unconscious, into a balanced and harmonious whole. Jung believed that at birth, each person is a complex mix of various psychic elements: the ego, the conscious identity, the personal unconscious, forgotten or repressed memories, and the collective unconscious, universal archetypes shared by all humans. However, in everyday life, we often identify solely with the ego, our conscious sense of I. This limited perspective can lead to inner conflicts, dissatisfaction, and feelings of fragmentation. Individuation is the process of expanding beyond the ego to embrace the unconscious parts of ourselves. Our shadow, our anima or animus, the inner feminine or masculine, and other archetypes. This means recognizing and accepting the hidden, often uncomfortable aspects of our personality instead of denying or suppressing them. Through this integration, we grow into a fuller expression of who we really are. This journey isn't easy. It involves confronting fears, facing inner darkness, and questioning old beliefs. But Jung saw this struggle as essential for mental health and spiritual fulfillment. Without individuation, people can feel lost, empty, or stuck in repetitive patterns. Individuation brings a sense of meaning, purpose, and authenticity. Jung used the metaphor of alchemy to describe individuation, a symbolic transformation where raw materials are purified and fused into gold. Similarly, the psychic elements in a person's mind are brought together in harmony, producing a radiant whole self. Dreams, myths, and symbols often guide this process, offering clues and encouragement along the way. One key aspect of individuation is the integration of the shadow. Instead of rejecting unwanted traits, the individuated person accepts and learns from them. Another is the development of the self, the archetype representing the totality of the psyche and the ultimate goal of individuation. The self is not a static endpoint, but a dynamic process of ongoing growth. Individuation also involves balancing the masculine and feminine energies within us. Jung believed that everyone has both anima and animus, regardless of gender. Bringing these energies into harmony allows for emotional balance, creativity, and healthier relationships. Jung's emphasis on individuation highlights the importance of inner work, reflection, self-awareness, and dialogue with the unconscious. It's a deeply personal journey, unique to each individual but with universal significance. Through individuation, we move beyond the superficial roles and masks we wear and discover a deeper, more authentic identity. In today's fast-paced, fragmented world, the call to individuation feels more urgent than ever. Many people experience anxiety, depression, and a sense of disconnection because they have lost touch with their inner selves. Jung's teaching reminds us that true healing and happiness come not from external achievements, but from inner integration. Ultimately, individuation is a journey toward wholeness, an invitation to live fully and freely as the person you were meant to be. It's the process of uncovering your unique path and embracing all parts of yourself with compassion and courage. Jung's vision of individuation offers hope that even in a chaotic, uncertain world, we can find meaning, balance, and a deep connection to ourselves and the greater mystery of life.